credit card, and for 1 month you can use that 13,000 rupees and you can learn Azure, right? Now over here, so now let us say you are logged in into Azure, you have bought the subscription and you want to use some services. So for example, if you want to go and create a virtual machine, so here it is. I can go and I can create a virtual machine. You want to go and you can, if you want to use the Azure storage, there is Azure storage out here. You want to go and use SQL Server, there is SQL Server out there. You want to go and use the Azure DevOps, yes, the Azure DevOps, the Cosmos DB. So you name that service and that service has been now put on the portal and you can pay as you go, right? Now, very quickly, let me go back to my drawing room out here and let us try to visualize that how is the Azure internally, this whole thing has been architected, right? So first thing, definitely Azure has lots of data centers out there. So in these data centers, you know, they have put their machines out there and they have used the virtualization technology of Microsoft. So for example, if you see, so let us say that you have a data center, you have, let's say this is physical machine 1, this is physical machine 2, right? And those physical machines are of a very, very higher end configuration, right? And there is another data center, assume, you know, it also has a physical machine 1 and physical machine 2, right, and so on. And these data centers, so you can think about that this is a rack out here, this is a rack out here, and this is a data center, this is some other rack. And these data centers, you know, they belong to a region like Bangalore or Mumbai or wherever, you know, the data centers are there. So these, you can have multiple data centers, right? Different buildings, far away located. So this can be, probably this can belong to a zone and this can belong to a region and so on, right? So they have zones, they have regions, they have geographical boundaries and so on. Now, so you have a machine 1 out here, you have a machine 2, assume, let's think about that. The whole Azure is only 2 physical machines, assume, you know. Someone comes out here and says, I want to create a virtual machine, right? So what he will do is he will use the virtualization technique and he will create a VM for him into one of those machines. I again repeat, he will create a virtual machine into one of those machines. If somebody comes and says, I want to go and host a website. So for those websites, it is possible that there are some shared VMs. I will just give the name as SVM. So he will go and take this website and host into one of these virtual machines. Now, if you go and buy something like a virtual machine directly, right? If let us say you go and you buy something like a virtual machine directly, that means that you want to have control of everything. You want to have control of the hard disk. You want to have control of the operating system. You want to have control of the RAM. You want to upgrade it. You want to take the full control of it. That means that you are a person who is actually using infrastructure of Azure, because you want a lot of control. So you are, when you buy something like virtual machine, that means that you are actually buying an infrastructure. For example, if you go and if you buy something called as a security box, you are again buying something like an infrastructure. So infrastructure, as when you buy something like infrastructure, that means that you are actually buying a physical device from Azure, from cloud, right? Now, second, you think, let's say that you are a website developer, or let's say you are an Excel user. So when you are an Excel user, you don't care that this Excel is running on virtual machine 1 or this Excel is running on virtual machine 2. Let us say you go and you connect to SQL Server. Let's say you are a DBA, or let's say you are a PowerPoint person, or let's say you are a website hoster. You want to just create a website and you want to host it. So in that situation, you don't want to know that where it is hosted, what it is doing. You just want your application to be live, right? The maximum access you want is how to go and publish the application, how to go and use Excel must be a URL, right? So over there is a shared VM inside which that service will be running, right? But you can't really go into this shared VM and you can't really get access to this, right? So this is called as software as a service. That means you want to use SQL Server software. There is a ready-made VM which is shared. From that instance, he gives you some part to you and you start using it, right? So that is one part. So that there is infrastructure and there is something called as software. So when you say software as a service, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, somebody's accounting application. So when you want to use the accounting application, you pay to the company. The company says, I will create everything for you. You just use the URL. Now there is something in between as well. On this virtual machines which I've shown out here, this virtualization, everything is done because of there is a nice Azure platform out here. This Azure platform sits on the top of these physical machines and makes them a powerful cloud, right? So because of this Azure framework, I will say, all this magic is happening, right? Now on this, so in this Azure framework, they have given Azure framework also has its own services. For example, Azure framework has something called as table. This table is not SQL Server table. These tables are Azure's own storage way of storing row and values. You can have something called as Azure queues. Now Azure queues are nothing but the first in first out way where you can go and get the Azure queue. So on this platform itself, there are lots of services also which are built in. So if you go and use any one of these services, that means you are using the platform services. So that means you are doing PaaS. You are using a platform service of Azure, right? And remember, when you say a platform service, that means that I cannot run Azure queues into a normal Windows operating system. Azure platform services are tied up with Azure, right? So in other words, when I go to Azure out there and when I access any one of these services, you should at least be aware of, at least you should know that what level of service you are buying, what category of service you are buying. So for example, if I go and say SQL Server, that means I am buying software as a service, because SQL Server was built already in 1990s, and today it was not built for Azure as such. It was not built to be a part of Azure, but I can host it inside Azure. They have given the access of doing it. For instance, if you say you want to use Excel, like MS Office is already there from long time back. Let's say if you want to use Oracle, Oracle is from a third-party vendor. So Microsoft has done tie-up with Oracle. They will give you the instance. You don't have to know internally everything. So that's again software as a service. And then when you start using Azure tables, Azure queues, then you are aware of that, yes, that this is a part of Azure platform. This is very important. For example, let us say that if you use platform as a service, if you use some of the service of Azure, then you are saying that your application cannot run without Azure. I repeat that. Why this awareness is important is, that means that if, let me just check if my voice is audible. Sometimes I keep speaking out there and, okay. Oh, everything is there, 411. No, I'm not on mute. Hang on. All well? Okay, thank you very much. When you're online, you can just speak out there, keep speaking. I'm okay, voice is okay. Am I audible? Okay, great. My screen is also visible. Please give me a feedback so that I don't, I'm sorry that I'm disturbing you in between. Sometimes you speak, what is to happen is in that desktop version, at the side, I used to get an alert. Now I need to really flip out here and go to the browser and see you well. Okay, all is well. Thank you. So coming back here, I just want to make a point out there. If I use infrastructure as a service, I'm still not tied up with Azure platform. If I use software as a service, I'm still not tied up with the platform. If I use PaaS, platform as a service, I need to know that, yes, this is Azure Fabric. Will it work on normal Windows or on Linux? This is Azure Table. For example, Azure Table, Azure Queues, Azure Containers, Azure Blobs. None of them work without Azure platform, right? Yeah, said and done. Nowadays, Azure platform is now also available for some companies. So in the future time, you can install Azure framework into your own company and create your own Azure platform inside your company. So you can think about like a private cloud, right? But that's far away still, guys, 3-4 years down the line. And I'm sure that the license would be like, it would be like a heavy cheese, I'm sure. They'll apart your pocket, right? So, but whenever that happens, but for now, Azure, you can think about 99% is only available to the portal.azure.com, right? So let me go back here now. So that's the portal out there. So I can go, so when I take a virtual machine out here, this means infrastructure. When I go and when I say Azure Storage or Cosmos, this means like Azure Active Directory, it's only with Azure, right? The platform as a service. When I go and take something like Oracle or must be MySQL, I'm not sure. They must not be giving MySQL separately. Okay, or must be, I'll say SQL Server. There it is. This means that, like, look at that cockroach DB. That's marketplace, you know. So that's again third party SQLite. So I think if I go to marketplace, I would have seen Oracle, right? So that's from the third party vendors, right? And so on. Okay. So now I'm going to go and add a virtual machine very quickly. Let's do that very quickly. So I'm doing now infrastructure as a service. It is nowhere written over here saying that this is infrastructure as a service. You need to understand it. You need to understand the concept. You need to know what you're doing, right? So the first thing is I'm going to go and create a virtual machine out here. When I create a virtual machine, or when I create any resource in Azure, I create a virtual machine, or either I take an SQL Server service, or I do anything, always try to put everything into logical grouping called as resource groups. So when you go out there, you say that I will now have 2 SQL Server instances, I will have 4 oracles, I will have 2 websites. Just try to put them into a group, you know, so that you can build them separately, you can delete them separately, you can do. So that's what this resource group out here is. I'll say create a resource group rest1 out here, and I'll say okay, some name to the virtual machine, VM1234, whatever. So that's a virtual machine name out here. Operating system, what do you want to choose? I'll just say Windows Server. So quickly, Windows Server 2019 data center. I always pick up the new version. If you want to go and change the compute, the RAM and the hard disk, you can see a change size. I can go and I can pick up a size which is of less value or less amount. So you can see here, I can sort by the cost and I can take something. But for now, I'll just take whatever it is, because if you take a very less cost VM, then it will be very slow as well, right? And I will put my username and password, which is needed for the virtual machine. So there it is. Enter the password. Do you want to go and do an RDP? Yes, I want to go and do an RDP. RDP means I want to connect through the Microsoft Terminal services, through the Microsoft Desktop services. If you want to go and change the hard disk from premium to something else, networking, and so many other things. So you can see here, as compared to when you go and if you say you want to buy something from GoDaddy, or let us say you're buying something from your provider, then what happens? You have to send an email to him. You have to tell him all the configurations, right? And if you want to change something, then again he will send you an email. Hey, you want 16 GB RAM? This is the cost. Here there is nothing like that. You have almost full control, leaving that hardware part. You can just touch it. That's only what is there. Or else everything you can do through Azure, right? So that's what cloud is all about. Cloud gives you a lot of control on what to choose, like a shopping basket. We can choose. Second, it is pay as you go. So I go and I create this. You can see I'm saying review and create, and there it is. It's giving me an hourly cost out here, 7 rupees per hour, which I'm okay with it. And he has also given me a preview of what I want, and I'll just say create it, and there it is. So this is a very, very simple way of creating an Azure virtual machine, right? In the same way, you can go and create other services as well. For example, let us say you want to go and host SQL Server. So there it is. You can see here SQL Server. So go and say SQL database out here. So I'm going to go and say add an SQL database. Let me do this, guys, and let me also go and show you. Let me see if my virtual machine has been created. It's taking time. Okay. So in the same way, I can go and do SQL databases. Guys, let's go back to questions out there, and must be then I will take up the new other things as well. Difference between AWS and Azure. Very good question, Sandeep sir. So first thing, AWS and Azure, technically both of them are at the same par, or I will say AWS is much ahead in terms of, not much ahead, but in some of the features I find them to be very great, right? Very quickly adding here, tomorrow we will be having AWS training as well. So we are planning for Amazon services, Amazon cloud services. We have one of our trainers who will be taking the training 9 to 10. But here it is what I understand, if you are a Microsoft guy, if you're a Microsoft person, I think you should just stick to Azure. But if you say, no, like I want to do MySQL, I want to do Java and so on, I feel AWS has much more great features, as compared to what Microsoft has. So for example, now what happens in Microsoft technology is, for example, if it is like Visual Studio, if I go here to my Visual Studio, you will see a lot of things, part of the ecosystem. You will see an Azure SDK. You will see that when you go to publish something, you will see that right click and then you can go and you can publish that website on Azure. For example, look at this. So what I'm saying is I find a lot of what you call things, like for instance, very quickly, as a developer, I have been a .NET developer, and one of the things which I really find very elegant out here is with Azure is that I can go ahead, I can create a project, I can right click and say publish to Azure. I can take my SQL Server Management Studio, put the IP address, I can connect to Azure. And then it also gives me double security as well, right? So the biggest difference out here is that if it is Microsoft technology, you should go with Azure. From the costing perspective, if you're asking from the costing perspective, the difference has become very, very less. Must be 2%, 3%, maximum 5%. Maximum 5% in case if it is there. So if it is non-Microsoft technology, I would suggest to go with Amazon. If it is Microsoft framework, C#, .NET, SQL Server, SSIS, so SharePoint, Azure. Any questions out there? So here very quickly, for example, look at this. This is my web application. So I go anywhere, right? And if I say, for example, look at this, I say publish, and there is always this one menu out there which will say, oh, do you want to go and host this on Azure app service? Do you want to create an app service out there, right? You will also, over here you can see everywhere, publish on cloud. So the point is that, there is a very tight, natural integrated ecosystem with Visual Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, and all the tools of Microsoft with Azure, which I find to be very plus point in terms of if you're a Microsoft guy. If you're a non-Microsoft, then you should go for AWS. Okay, so very quickly, I can see no questions out there. If you have any questions, please put ahead. Let me scroll down. No questions. Fine. I'm ready to answer all the questions, what I can know. So here it is. I'm connecting to this virtual machine. I can just say connect. I'll go to the RDP out here. That's the remote desktop from which you can connect. I will say download, and I can connect to this VM, which is a normal VM, which you see around you, right? So that's how you go ahead and create, how do you say, you create a virtual machine, right? Virtual machine falls into the category of infrastructure as a service. So that's my virtual machine, which is getting loaded out here. So any questions, any queries? Yes. If you have any questions, you can put down in the chat. That's my virtual machine. That's my desktop of my virtual machine. Sir, give some more differences. I've got a private message. I can give you 10 differences, but I think you should have that one difference which will say that you want to, one or two differences which will say you should choose or not, right? And as I've said, the monetary difference is very difficult to quantify. It's very, very extremely difficult to quantify. For example, guys, here's a question. Monetarily, can you point out the difference? It is very difficult. For example, if I take SQL Server on Azure, if I take the service of SQL Server on Azure, it's cheaper. Why? Because SQL Server belongs to Microsoft. So internally, it's the same internal team. They have worked out their profits, internal accounting. But the same SQL Server, when it goes on Amazon services, yeah, they have to pay to the Microsoft must be 70%, 80%, right? So now, technically, both of them can get hosted on Amazon as well on Azure. But because they are different organizations, the cost factor matters a lot. So now here you will have a 30–40% of difference. So that's why I made a very blanket statement. I know that it looks very rude as well. Azure technology, Microsoft Technologies means Azure, period. You will get it everything at a cheaper cost. It is there. It's like they are the manufacturers of their software. They are hosting their own software. It is their own cloud. So right from production to go live, everything is theirs. So that's why it is much cheaper. But when you say like Red Hat on Microsoft Azure, you can see a price difference. Or when you say something which is from a third-party vendor, you can see a pricing difference. So very difficult to quantify from pricing perspective. Okay. Okay. Now here, So let us now take some other service. So this was the Azure virtual machine service out here, which I showed. Okay. Which service should I take? Yes, I want to ask you guys. I can give you some choices out here. Which service should I take? We have 1 hour more. I can take SQL Server. I can take Azure Storage. I can take the app services if you want to host a website. Because this is for beginners, I've just put the beginner kind of service. I can take function apps. I can take logic apps. So many services out there. Let me see which one you want to see out here. SQL Server, function apps. What are other people doing? Yes. App services, app services. Okay, to SQL Server. So app service and SQL Server has got the voting. Let me see if some more people can vote for it. So I think that looks very logical. App services, and I can also do logic apps. I'll do logic apps also. Okay, must be we can move function apps, logic apps also as well. Okay, let's do this. App service, SQL Server, and if I get time, I will do Azure Storage as well. Yep. Okay, let's do SQL Server. Okay, just 2 minutes. I'll just close. Okay. Okay, everybody is working from home and storage. I have my tea as well. Okay. So let's go back here. SQL Server. Let's start with SQL Server. SQL database. I need to really work this out. Create an SQL database. There it is. Again, same UI, same things, right? So pay as you go. I will add this to the resource group REST1. Remember the REST1 which I have created just now. Let's create a database name out here. So I'll say SQL correspond. Select a server. Now this is where things starts becoming complicated. You can see a select a server out there. So I'll say create. Now this, when you say create new, yes, it will use a server. Please understand now. It will use a server, but this server is more of a shared server. So for example, when I say create new out here, you can see he does not give me those things. He does not give me an IP address. He does not give me that I can go and I can choose how much RAM I want, how much CPU I want. That is a part of it, but he's saying that you are buying a software. So let me take care of the hardware, right? So also, like a lot of people term this as serverless. Serverless means I don't bother about the server where you create it, right? I only bother about SQL Server should run, right? So I'm going to go and say SQL correspond. Server admin, I can say let's not use SA. Let's say Shiv. I'll just put SA login as well. If you want to do a Windows authentication, if you want to go and do a Windows authentication, you need to have the Azure AD enabled. At this moment, Azure AD is enabled. Then the Windows authentication can be done as well, right? But at this moment, I've just created a user out there. So there it is. You can see here, he has said that I am allocating you Gen 5 machine, right? And I'm allocating you 32 GB storage, but he does not give me the exact IP address of the virtual machine. He does not give me an RDP. He will not give me the desktop access, right? Next, networking. So you can see other things out here. Networking, do you want to have a public endpoint? No, I don't want my SQL server to be exposed via REST services. I want that people should be able to connect from an IP address on the TCP IP 1433 port. Probably that's what I want, but I don't want it to be hosted on API, right? So I'll just leave this. You can also see that, and these are like, you can see collation sequence. So there's a collation sequence as well here. Okay. You can see here, they're charging extra for advanced security. No, not now. Guys, please note, when you are actually going and clicking on, when you're doing next, for example, when you go and buy a ticket for a plane, you will always find that they will say, okay, here is something for accidents, so they will actually give you what you call some kind of a medical plan and so on, right? And they just add extra to your cost. So please note that when you're creating these VMs, Microsoft would like to push something more from your pockets, right? So you can see here, he's saying that for advanced security, I will do something for you, but not now. Just leave it. So I'm going to go and minimize that cost. Tags, these are very excellent things. Tags. Any resource you create in Azure, there is always a tag. This tag says, I want to search by the name UK project. So you can say here, okay, project name UK, right? Or something else, client one. So you can go and you can put a tag out here. This tag resource groups, they are good, they help you to bundle it. But then again, inside resource group, you want to say that, oh no, I want to put more tags or search, by which I can go and I can group them and so on. So you can always go and use tags out here. At this point, I'll not do it. Review and create. Cost per month. So per day, I don't know how much it will cost me. Fine. So there it is. My SQL server is getting created. All right. So that's very simple. You create the SQL server, and what I can do now is I can just spawn my SQL Server Management Studio out here. So, and I can just go ahead and connect to my SQL Server database. Always when you create a resource out here, at the top side, you can see deployment in progress. So anything what you do is all there. The activity log is all out here. So once this deployment is done, and you can see also, this is very interesting. When you go back to the home page, there are these small icons out here which you have recently used. For example, I have recently used a virtual machine. So when I click on virtual machine, he just shows me the current virtual machines. I have recently used SQL database. So once the SQL, that database is created, and it should be seen out here. You can see it is still getting created, right? So when you talk from the perspective of browsing Azure, I would suggest to pay attention to only two things. Forget about these long left menus out here. I don't really like this. I've stopped visiting this for past 2 years, right? What I do is that I use the search box. So I go and say SQL Server when I want to get something new. I get anything from the search box. So it's not only for SQL Server, must be for anything, right? And then whatever are my recent ones is all nicely shown out here. And I can go and I can see my recent things as well. And sometimes when I get confused, right, I just click on the resource groups. So I go to resource group and say, something is lost. So I can go here and say, okay, in rest one, what is it? So virtual network, there is a SQL server, there's a virtual machine. So you can see a lot of things out here in the resource groups. So you can see all these small icons out here. Now you must be wondering that, hey, I didn't create a virtual network. Where did it come from? I did create a public IP address. Where did it come from? I didn't create an NIC card. This is a network interface card. When you created a virtual machine, these all were needed. For example, if you go and see this virtual machine out here, this is our virtual machine, right? So this virtual machine needs networking. So if you go and click on networking, look at the name of the network, VM 123455. So the same NIC card, this network card is also created for it, VM 123455, right? When Azure came in, my goodness, it was horrible. So you have to create a network, then you have to create the RAM something separately, and then you have to create something separately, and then like assemble that machine. Literally, it was horrible. So this is good. I want to create a virtual machine with all the default things, and it is available. So that's why when you go to resource groups, you will suddenly find that things which you have not bought, but actually they are part of something which you have bought, and those are essentials. I can see my Azure has become slow, very slow. It's Saturday. So you can see lots of other things also has been brought in, right? And also these icons, when you start using Azure a lot, these icons, like one is that you can see the type out here that this is an SQL database and this is virtual machine. But these icons will also help you to understand that this is a virtual machine, this cylinder is a SQL database, this is a virtual network, this dotted signs and so on. So after some time, when you start using it, those icons you can understand very easily, right? So my SQL database has been created. There it is. Let's go ahead and connect it. So here the SQL database. Now that is a server name on internet, SQL database.windows.net. So I will go and I will copy. You can see I have hovered my menu out there, and there is copy to clipboard. This copy to clipboard is available in all the properties. For example, if I go out here and if I want to go and copy this is all available out here. You don't have to really go and say like select this. So I like this. It's user friendly. Copy to clipboard, and I will go and I will connect. You can see I'm trying to connect through the management studio. And if you remember, I had created an SQL server authentication. So I'll just say my password. Now, when you are trying to connect from your SQL Server Management Studio to Azure, what Azure first does is he will add your IP address to the firewall. So he will say that you have to be registered inside our firewall, or else I will not allow it. So when I try to go and connect out here, look at this. He says that please sign in again. If you sign in again, I will take this IP address and I will add it to the firewall of the Azure, right? So one is that you can go manually and do it. If you want to go manually and do it, that means you have to go and say IP config out here. You have to copy that IP address, then put it out there. But at this moment, I will just say sign in, and I will try to just let it do automatically, right? So there it is. You can see he's saying that, do you want to add this IP address? Yes, I want to add the IP address. If you want to add the subnet, saying that, okay, from this range to this range, everybody has access, then you can also add a subnet IP. A subnet is nothing but a group of IP address, right? So at this moment, I just want this IP address to be registered into the firewall. It is registered. And now I can go and I can connect as a normal SQL server, how I see offline. I can create tables, I can create stored procedures, and so on. There it is. That's the database. It gives me a feature to go and create a database. Everything, other things are all almost same what you see as a local SQL server. So that was the second service which I covered. So one was virtual machines and another was SQL server. So any questions out here, any queries? If you have any questions, you can put down on the chat below. Okay, can we write query between DB like DB1.table? Yeah, absolutely, you can write. Why not? You can do everything what you do with your local SQL server. No, the SSMS. So here are some questions. I'll take these questions out here. Okay. Let me answer these questions. Guys, you should go and see the videos. You should see the videos. So I'm going to go and take all these questions out here. Okay, so that other people can also see the questions when I answer them. Okay, let me take all the questions. So No, it's this. This is not installed by me. This is created on Azure cloud, so it is not mine. Are we opening the SSMS inside Azure? No, no. SSMS is here. SQL Server Management Studio. You can see in my start this. This is SSMS out here, and this is Azure. Azure is inside the browser. SSMS is this one, right? So SQL Server Management Studio is not coming from the cloud. The next question was, can we write SQL like star from the, yeah, why not? So you can write SQL. So for example, I can just show you these windows. So oh, come on, get doc inside it, right? Fine. So I can go and say a new query. I can like, so I can create a new table. I can say select star. Remember that when you're creating tables on Azure SQL Server like this, it takes a bit of time. You can see here, because it is connecting online, so it is having its own sweet time. So yes, that's an ID. That's your whole SQL Server as it is. And TBL123. And you can go and you can fire a new query absolutely the same way. So you can see this is the table created here. TBL123. And I can just say select star from TBL123. That should really work out. I don't have a record now, but yes, I can do that. So you can see it works. Okay, so any questions out there? We need SQL Server to we need a server to install. So or was the SQL created? If not on VM, you created. So again, Amit, I think I answered that question. No, we cannot use Visual Studio on Azure. That's a good question, but I think we cannot use Visual Studio on Azure. If you want to use Visual Studio, that's difficult, right? Think about it, visualize it. It's difficult. Visual Studio comes with so many things, so difficult. Can we use SSMS? At least I am not aware of that SSMS. You can use SSMS inside Azure portal. I mean, like, you can create a VM and you can install in it whatever you wish. You can create a VM and install Visual Studio, but it is not like a service out there. Like when you go and if you type here and say SQL Server, for this automatically he goes ahead and takes one of the instance of SQL Server. So it is not pre-installed. So if you want to do any one of these custom things, then like installing Visual Studio. When you install Visual Studio, somebody wants SSIS, somebody wants Azure, somebody wants MVC. So it is difficult to have so many combinations. So must be they have not kept Visual Studio. So what servers were SQL Server installed if not on VM? It's installed. It's installed into VM. It's installed into VM. We need a server to install. No, we don't need a server. You will be charged for the license. You will be charged for the SQL Server license per month or as you use it. So for example, let's say SQL Server license is $8,000 offline, assume, right? Then you will be charged whatever, divide by $5, $10 per month. So you don't have to pay upfront and all those things are there, but all the other things of SQL Server are same. Is in the, so the SQL Server we installed is in portal. It is in the Azure portal. It's in the Azure portal already. Yes, you can send emails through Azure. You can use, I think there's a lot of confusion out here. I think let me correct this. A lot of people are thinking, where did SQL Server get installed? So here it is. SQL Server, so internally what Azure has done is, so assume that there is a physical machine out here, and in this physical machine they have created SQL, they have already installed SQL Server, and this is SQL Server instance 1. This is SQL Server instance 2, right? Now what happens is I say that I want to go and use an SQL Server instance. So must be will take one physical machine, and in that he must have installed that SQL Server instance, and that access he has given me. And in this he can install other instances as well. So he has actually given me an access to an instance called as whatever correspond.sql server.this, right? So because this is a standard installation, he has done it automatically. And when I connect through Management Studio, so my SSMS which is there, he connects through IP address to this instance. So if you see my SSMS is connecting through IP address, I'm sure that you guys must have hosted, you must have, how do you say, hosted SQL Server on public IP, right? So if you ask me, this is a public IP at this moment. You can see on the server name out there, that's what I gave. So SQL Server instance is hosted out there through SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. I am connecting to it. I don't know why their confusion is, but it's a straightforward thing, right? Okay. So SQL Server, and what are the services we discuss? So we covered virtual machines, done. Look at this, how easy Azure is. Okay, let's go ahead. Create an app service. So I want to go and host a Visual Studio, a MVC core application online. What should I do? So first thing, you can go here and say app service plan. So you can see an app services plan. So if you say create an app service, now there are two ways of doing it. You can either go and create an app service from here. So you can see here, I'm creating an app service. Again, now remember, when you're saying app service, that means that you don't want to access virtual machines. You don't want to do anything custom, right? And you can see here, he says that, so when you go and say, I want to create an app service out here, he says this is Linux or Windows. So let us say I say Linux, or let's say I say Windows. If I say Linux, now this is very important. You can see he has given me only 2 operating systems out here. That means that if I say Linux, I can host Java, I can host PHP, I can host a lot of things. I can host .NET Core, but if I say my old .NET framework, our old kid of 4.x, right, he cannot run on Linux. So if you go and if you create an app service plan which is of Linux out here, and if you try to host your MVC5 application on it, it will throw up an exception, right? And for Windows, yes, for Windows, everything will work, right? Now one is that I can do it from here. Another is I can do it from Visual Studio as well. So let us do from Visual Studio, right? Let us try to do it from Visual Studio. You can see here, this is my web application 13, which I've created. And this web application 13 is created as, it's an ASP.NET Core application, right? So let me go and say here publish. So look at this, publish. And I will say go ahead and publish it. So one is I can do it from there, or I can do it from here. So when I say start publish out here, he says that, do you have an existing app service? I can take that. If you don't have an existing app service, I can create one for you. So I will say, yes, I want to create an app service, but this app service, I want to create it on Linux because this is .NET Core, right? Let me check something. Right, so this is here. Let me see. Okay, .NET Core, yeah. So this is .NET Core out here. So I will say, yes, create a new one. I'll say create a profile. Now remember that if you're going and if you're connecting to Azure, again, he will say that please put your subscription. So that's my subscription, which is out here. If you don't have a subscription, you should add an account to it. And now you can see here, he says, so what is your hosting plan? So if I want, I can go ahead and I can take an existing hosting plan. You can see everything out there. Create an SQL database. You can do it from Visual Studio. You can do it from the portal. You can do it from here. So that's what I was saying. When you say integration with Microsoft subsystems, ecosystem, this is Azure is always great, because everything is integrated. So you can see that there is a hosting plan he has given to me. But if I want, I can go ahead and I can change this hosting plan and say that, no, like I want some more RAM out there, right? But fine, at this moment, this looks okay for me. I don't want application insight. Application insight means you want to also look into logging, you want to look into instrumentation and so on. Resource group, I will select the REST one. You can see here he's saying Should I create a new resource group? No, no, no. The rest one which we created, to that I would like to go and say created. So there it is, create. Remember the app service plan name is, it's a very bad name. Web application 113202000. It's a very bad name. I did not change the name out here. So now automatically I should see in my app service plan something getting created out here from Visual Studio. So remember, at this moment I just tailored it. I said that no, like let me not show this demo through the portal, and that's why I showed it through Visual Studio, right? So after some time, when this will all be done, this app service will be created, and in that our .NET Core application will run in, right? So any questions here on how to create an app service? It is getting created. So there it is, the app service has been created. It is not published still, guys. The application has not been published, but the service has got created. So if I refresh out here, why I don't see an app service plan? Must be once I publish, he will create it. Let me do that. You can see he has created this. Oops, sorry. Strange. Let me say publish out here. He should have shown me out here. Oh, there it is. Can you see? That is the plan. So this plan I could have created manually, but I've done through Visual Studio. And it is very interesting. Let us go and see that what kind of operating system has he selected. That would be really, really interesting to see, because he did not give me a chance to select an operating system out there. That's sometimes, you know, it becomes difficult for me. Let me go to my resource group out here. I want to just see that for that thing out here. And second, he should also show me here. Okay, there it is. So that is the, you can see it is getting hosted out here. I said publish. Remember that publish or working at the backend, and you can see on this URL, he has published my .NET Core application. So you can see it is getting published. But very quickly, I wanted to see, so this is the app service and this is the app service plan. So I want to just see the plan. Is it in the app service? Okay, strange. Okay, actually I was trying to check I was trying to check that, you know, has he used Linux or has he used Windows? Because see, if he uses Linux, it is good. I don't have to pay for Windows license. If he has used Windows to host it, then I need to really think about it. It's very strange. I should see it here. Fine. So there you can see the application is hosted, is been hosted, and it's all out here, right? Any questions here? Any queries? It's 2 minutes. Fine, let me not. Okay, let me go back out there. Yes. Right, so what is an app service? I'm so sorry, very silly question, but important. App service means you want to host a web application. Here's a question, what is an app service? You want to host a web application, you want to host JSP application, you want to host a PHP website, you want to host a .NET Core website. So for that, you want to create a hosting plan. So that's what app service is. For example, if you can do like this also, you can create a virtual machine and you can host your application on that, but that would be very costly. So when you create an app service plan, what it does is he takes one of those shared virtual machines and hosts your application on it. Yeah, similar, it will just give you web application. App service means only for applications. You don't want the whole virtual machine. You don't want to go and use the desktop. You don't want to install something. Are all Azure SaaS accessible through Azure portal, through marketplace, search, or yeah, so I can just paste it out here. No, so you can, very good question out here. You can go and you can host your application also into the marketplace. Here's a question. Are all Azure SaaS accessible through Azure portal? No, so Azure we'll not say Azure SaaS, or we will say other vendor SaaS, right? Other vendors, because when you say other vendor software are actually SaaS, right? So yes, almost Microsoft, everything is available. But if you say like, is the old Visual Basic available? No, like if you say, is your, like for example, let us say I create an application. Okay, I create my own accounting application and I want that it should just get hosted and people should use it. Then what I can do is I can use marketplace. So I can go and I can publish on the marketplace and it will be seen on the search and I can add it. Yes, so if so, can I create a software and make it available for all Azure? Absolutely, that's what the use is, you know. So what people do is, when you actually go and create something out there, for example, you create a virtual, if you say you are creating your own app, means what? You will be using some service of Azure, you will be using the same way of SQL Server. So for all that, he will create something called as ARM templates. ARM templates are nothing but, you know, those are templates, you know, which help you to create any resource. For example, at this moment, what I'm doing out here is I'm going here, I'm clicking on this and I'm creating a server. But now think about you, somebody wants to go and create 1,000 servers. Like if you look at network guys, they want to take, let's say they want to create 10 virtual machines, 10 people have joined your organization. They can't go and create again everything, right? And second, it can be non-standard. By mistake, they can go and say 8 GB RAM to someone. Let's say organization says everybody should get 12 GB RAM or 16 GB RAM. So there can be, and so what you can do is everything what you do out there, including your own application, for example, this SQL server out here, you can go and you can generate an ARM file out of it, right? So you can go and you can generate an ARM file out of it and you can run that ARM file and it will create the exact kind of resource for the same, right? So here, we can see here export template. So I can go here and say this is an export template out here, ARM template, and you can say download. Can you see that? Download. So this ARM template is like a JSON file out here, and then you can upload this JSON file anywhere, and you will get the exact kind of SQL server. You can change some names out here. For example, you can see here the name value is SQL Quest Pond. So let's make it SQL Quest Pond 1 and so on, right? So yes, you can create your own service. So that question, you can create your own software, host it, and then create an ARM of it, and somebody will, when they go to the marketplace, by the ARM it creates that that whole thing, right? You can use ARM, you can use PowerShell. There's a question out here, can I use PowerShell? Yes. So you can do manually. You can go and say create manually. That's the best way to learn, I will say. If you want to automate, you can use ARM or you can use PowerShell. What is the full form of ARM? Azure Resource Templates. So basically it helps you to just create, it's an automated script you can think about. Automated script to create a resource. Yes, Azure Resources Templates, yes. Okay. Any questions here? Okay, so let's continue and then I will go back to questions. We have more 30 minutes out here. I just want to, today before I go in the evening, I want to make sure that you guys have a basic idea of Azure, right? This is done, Azure App Service is done. Now please go and see the videos. For example, today I covered SQL Server with you, but I did not cover DTU, I did not cover eDTU, right? So those things are more explained in the videos. When I talked about app services, I did not talk about a lot of other things out there. How to go and do the production, how to go and do the, what do you call, the test environment differently, right? So that's all there in the videos. Please check that. Okay. Let me talk about Azure storage first, and then I will talk about logic apps. I'm just trying to shuffle out here. Azure storage is nothing but storage which is bound to Azure. These storages you cannot really, for example, SQL Server, you can use it separately. It's a separate software. Azure storages are those storages, which belong to Azure platform, right? So again, let me go back here. So there are four kinds of storage out there, which are given by Azure. So I'll say Azure storage. The name itself says storage. So first thing, you have to go and create a storage account. So I'll say create a storage account. You can see that he has already created a storage account. Can you see out here? Can anyone guess this storage account is used where? Can anyone guess it? You can see there is already a storage account here called as res1 diag. Can anyone guess what this storage account is? You can see there is a storage account out here. Can anyone guess why this storage account has been created? Where is the Explorer? Yes, let me see if somebody can answer on the chat. Right. So here it is, create a storage. Oh, he got logged off, looks like. So that's the session is getting recorded again. Okay. So I've just said Azure storage correspond out. Can everyone see my screen out here? Can everyone see my screen? Let me please quickly check out. Yeah. Storage account here, storage V2. I'll take the latest ones. V2, these are all old ones out here. Standard, I don't want to get charged higher standard. This I will not explain for now. What is RAGRS and ZRS and LRS? And please see the video out there. If you find any doubt, please contact me. But I'll just tell you what exactly these are. Very quickly I will tell you, but I will not really go very in detail into it. So what happens is when a storage gets created out there, right? So for example, let's say you create a storage. So let's say the storage gets created in Bangalore, somewhere in Bangalore, in one of those suite data centers, in one of those racks, your storage account is created. Now, if God forbidden something goes wrong out here, then you want to say that go and create a backup something in Mumbai, right? So that this redundant backup, I can go and create a DR plan and just use this and make it live, right? So when I say here LRS, that means local redundant storage. Means what? Inside the same data center, the backups will be created. When I say out here ZRS, that means zones. So Bangalore is one zone and Mumbai is another zone. So he will go ahead and create ZRS. He will create one backup out here. If I go and say GRS, that means outside India it will go and it will create a backup in US, right? So means you are going actually, you are going outside the geography, geo redundant storage. So basically, these things are out here for redundancy out here, but at this moment, I don't want to use any one of these storages out here. I want to just say none. Can't I say none? So I'll just say the least one, LRS, so that I don't get charged. Remember, if you are going to go and take this geo redundant storage, the cost is high. Local LRS. Cool hot. So hot means, is this data being fetched again and again? Then probably I can make it better by replicating that data to the nearby location and so on. So I'll say no, like it is cool, it's not been fetched too much, so don't try to optimize it by any way. So review and create. So this creates my storage account. Now inside my storage account, I can create various kind of data storage. For example, I can have a queue data storage. I can have blobs if I want to just store videos and MP4s. I can have a simple file system where I want to just go and store it as a file, like on the D drive or C drive. I can have something like tables, where I will have rows and columns. So once this storage account gets created, you can create various kind of data storages which are part of the Azure platform. So you will see a storage accounts out here. So now one more storage account should be created. So in that, I can go and create this 2-3 different types of storage, depending on my need out there. Okay, so there it is. It has been created. Go to resource. So if you see out here, that screen out there tells you the different kind of storages you can create. So if you want to just go and store in a tabular way, remember this is not exactly like SQL Server tables, but it is tabular, right? You can store like row, column, and so on. It stores in a JSON format. Now you will say that, so I have SQL Server. Why do I need this table? See, SQL Server is a software as a service. This table out here is a platform as a service. It is available only inside the Azure platform. File, I want to store it like G drive or something. Containers, videos, and so on. Queues, first in, first out, FIFO, LIFO, and other things, right? So there are 4 different kind of storage out here. So first thing, these tables are very different from SQL Server tables. One more question which can come to your mind is that, okay, so I can go and store here songs.mp4, which is unstructured, and you're again saying unstructured. What is the difference between both of them? I can go and store a PDF. A PDF is a binary. It is unstructured. I can store the same PDF into a container. This container is termed as a blob, please understand. So the difference is that when you actually store something in a file share, and let us say it is 10 MB of file, it does not stream it. It just downloads the whole file. If something happens in between, nothing can happen. It will break in between, right? But in case of blobs, it will stream it. Means what? For example, let's say you have 10 GB of file out here. He will create chunk of 11 MB or must be 11 GB. And so it will take 1 GB and then 2 GB and 3 GB and then, so it will actually stream it. So for example, if you are doing video or audio wherein you want something to be played and the other thing to be streamed, then blobs are more useful, right? But if you want something like saying, okay, everything comes in and everything, or else everything does not come in, then it is file share, right? So both of these things are different. This is more streaming of unstructured data. This is more downloading any data, right? Good. So I will go out here now and I'll take only one storage at this moment. Others are there in the videos. And today I'm planning, in the evening, I'm planning to use blobs. So I can go here. Let me go to the container. I will add a container out here. Remember, if you want, at the top we have container, and then inside the container we have blobs. So I'll just say here container 1, 2, 3, and I will say create it. Is this private? I'll say no. Let's make it accessible to everyone for now. If you make it private, then that means people cannot add or remove it, but they can read it, right? So there is a container out there, and then inside this container I can go and I can upload any document. So these are blobs. So I can go and I can upload, must be a file out here. I can take this Azure Live out here and I can upload it. It's a JPG file. So I can upload a JPG file. I can upload anything what I wish, right? So this is Azure blobs out here. In the same way, we have queues. we have other things as well. Azure storage. Azure storage is storages which are part of platform as a service. And remember, this Azure storage you can connect via C#, you can connect via Java, you can do it manually. You can connect via something called as Azure Explorer. So for example, there is an Azure Explorer out here. So this is a container. Where is the Explorer? I always lose that Explorer. Storage Explorer. This should be here. It's here somewhere here. Damn it. Looks like they have sorted it by alphabets. Is it A, B, C, D? You know, I don't know why they are kept it. This should be here. Like, so you can see here, this is a Storage Explorer. Please note that this Storage Explorer is online, but there is also a Azure Storage Explorer which you can download. It's a software which you can download like SQL Management Studio, and you can connect online as well. So if you go to the Azure Storage Explorer, you can go and you can see this is a container, and inside container these are the blobs. So at the top we have container, and these are the blobs out here. You can also see this URL out here, so anybody can go and access it from any URL. So you can see at the end of the day, if he has a proper access, that's the binary which I've uploaded, right? So any questions, guys? Any questions on Azure storage? I just showed an example of a blob, but in the video tutorial we have tables, we have queues, and other things as well. So ESPS appears as an hardware task. So let me take this question out here. It's a good question. I'll not say hardware task means admin task. We are saying, right, Amit? So here it is. So this ESPS, looks to be more admin activity. Must be I don't know if I can take that. As a .NET developer, how we can use this programming experience in Azure? See, for example, now let us say that if you go and if you create a blob out here, I go and I create a blob. So if I create this blob out here, I need to access this in .NET, isn't it? Or let's say I go and create a queue. I create an Azure table. So I will create a UI in .NET, and I will connect to the Azure queue out there. For example, this one here, the Azure blob. Look at this. So the Azure blob. So as a .NET developer, what I will be doing is, here is my container. To this container, they have given here access keys. So somewhere they must have given the access control. Oh, where are the keys at the container level? Access keys. So I can take this connection string. Look at this. Can you see this connection string? This is all there in the videos, guys. All there in the videos. Today is like a basic class. I don't want to really stress you, but you can take this connection string as a .NET developer. You can connect to any of the resources, and you can say add, update, delete, modify, and so on. Right? So as a .NET developer, you should know how to connect to it, how to go and add a table and other things. Why I'm not taking this thing again, because I've taken it 5-6 times again on QuestPond, and I don't want to really take it again, right? So for people who are new, please see the videos. We keep repeating these trainings again and again. So must be in the next training you can catch up and you can see the demos live using C#. But you can use the connection strings out here. Key 1, connection string 2, and connection string 1. Same way for Azure tables, you will have connection string. For SQL Server, you will have connection strings. Anything resource out there, you can have connection strings. So ESPS or CS, more than admin, one is that you have to know, right, what you're doing. So one is you will go and you will do it manually, but the other is you will access them offline through the application. No, there is no. So good question out here. Can I identify this is ESPS or CS? No, you can't. It's very difficult. You have to visualize it. You have to think logically. So that's why I say that don't really think about ESPS, CS. Don't even think about it. Must be if you really want to breathe good, don't think about it, right? I know that in all the cloud classes out there, people take ESPS, CS, and it sometimes becomes confusing saying that, am I using a platform now or am I using an infrastructure and so on? Look at your requirement and see what you want. Why Azure is so expensive? Yeah, because they provide you 99% SLA, 99.99% SLA. They provide you backup. Look at the features. Remember, Azure is not for small players. So if your bill is coming 10,000 rupees per year, Azure is not for you. Even lakh rupees per year, Azure is not for you. It is for big enterprises where their bills are really, really very huge, right? And second, very important is a lot of times, there are period, when that virtual machine is not used. There are times, when they want to upgrade their hardware. We have to buy a new laptop. Think about that. If everybody has to get a new laptop, how much money you have to spend on the hardware? So, and where should I dispose it? So if I dispose, for example, I bought a Windows license long time back. It is of no use today. Windows 2000, I think 2000, Windows 2000 server license. 50 licenses I have bought, I remember. And today, those are all gone, right? So when you come to Azure out there, those licenses can get upgraded, the paper licenses. SQL Server is 2012. It will charge me a small amount. I can make it 2019. I don't have to worry about disposing. So all that things what you put in your account saying that this is depreciation and so on, I don't have to worry about it, right? So Azure is for big enterprises when you buy in volumes. When you buy in volumes and you want to go pay as you go. If you have just one license and two license and one website, GoDaddy or your local provider is good. Azure is not for everyone. Azure and Amazon is not for everyone. And very important point, before when you go to Azure, you should definitely go and see that is your cost coming down. If your cost is not coming down, then you shouldn't. So there is something called as an Azure, how do you say, cost calculator or total cost TCO. Azure TCO, total cost of ownership. Means as an owner, if I buy 10 machines, 20 licenses, 40 SQL servers, what is the cost of owning it and maintaining it? And what is the cost of putting on hire? So you can go to this small link out here called as the total cost of ownership. And you should then say, what is your workload? So I'll say, okay, I have Windows Server 30. Have the videos of AZ900. Please start with the certification of AZ900. Right. No, you don't have to know anything, Amit, over this, right? But very quickly, I would like to cover one more topic and then we will end. I know that it's almost we have 1.5 hours, but just very quickly, I want to discuss this topic out called as logic apps. Logic apps. I'll discuss this because for today's demo, I'll be using logic apps. I'll be using some other service of Azure and so on. So logic apps. Now, one is we have this web application. Another one is you can have something called as function apps. I will not cover that now, but function apps. Function app is nothing but you have just one function which you want to host on Azure. When you say you want to host a website and web application, right? An app service, right? So you host an app service, you have 10, 15 pages in it. It creates a strong virtual machine also at the back end. But sometimes you say, I just have only one function. That function also runs 10 times in a month. That's it. Then what you can do is you can just create a function app and you will only be billed. You will only be billed when that function runs. So function apps are nothing but they are small piece of code out there which you can host on Azure, C# code or Java code or whatever, right? And you will be billed only when the CPU runs, right? So that is the function apps out there. I will not create one at this moment, but you can always go and you can add here a function app and you can start the way I have done all the other things out there, right? There is also something called as logic apps. You can, if you look at the sign of logic apps out here, if you go and if you see very quickly the small sign of the logic apps out here, this small sign out here indicates a kind of a workflow. You can see that small branch out here, it says a workflow, and that's what exactly logic apps are. It is logic saying that there is an HTTP call which is made. So after the HTTP call, what do you want to do? I want to go and send an email, right? I want to go and put a condition out here. And if this condition is true, go and store into Azure queues. If the condition is not true, go and write it to an SQL server. If the condition is something else, you go and move ahead and you go and store it to SQL Oracle. Or if it is not, then you go and you make one more HTTP. So you can go ahead and you can create a flow out there, and you can create a logic app, right? So I'm going to go back now and let me create a logic app. So remember, for programmers out here, well, one is how to host a web service, how to host an application, app service, how to use your normal SQL server, Azure SQL server, what do you have out there, other different storages, containers, blobs, queues, files, and tables. If I have a simple logic, and that simple logic I want to host, function app. If I have a workflow, logic app. Logic app and function app you can write in C# as well, right? So that's for developers out there. Logic apps. I'm going to go and create a logic app out here. This is the last thing of this course today. Again, everything I'll put it into this REST1 resource. I'll say quest spawn logic and region. Yes, this is the region. I don't want an integrated service environment. I don't want any kind of log out here. So this is off. Review and create. And I'll just create it. So now I'm creating a logic app. I have still not written any logic into this app out here. Logic app, I can use the logic app designer and I can put logic out there, right? So you can see it is creating things out here. And you can see also like a workflow. I don't know why they named this as logic app. Workflow was a very simple word they could have used, but logic app, fine. So you can, but internally still it is Microsoft empty workflow, right? So there it is, logic apps, refresh, what happened? I have to refresh the whole page sometimes. That is really, really strange. Oh, there it is, quest spawn logic. Okay, so there it is, logic app. And now I can go to the logic app designer. So you can see here now, when I go to quest spawn logic out here, there is a logic app designer at the left hand side, right? So I'll just click on the designer, and the designer says, so what do you want to do? Do you want to go and receive something from Azure Service Bus? Azure Service Bus I completed, I think 1 or 2 days back. So when will this thing start? Common trigger. When something is in the queue, when somebody sends an HTTP request, when somebody posts something on the Twitter, when. So lots of things out there. So I'll say simple one, I'll start with HTTP request, right? So when this HTTP request occurs, what do you want to do? I'll say a new step. I'll say whenever this HTTP request occurs, I want to go ahead and send an email. You can see here from the Gmail account. So right, so I want to go and send an email. So, and then when you say send an email out here, he will say, okay, can you go and sign in into a Gmail? You have said you want to use a Gmail, right? So I'll just go and get signed in into my Gmail account. So now what will happen is when somebody goes and invokes this, it will actually go and send an email. From the Gmail, he will send an email out. So I'll take corresponding interview questions. Allow. And if you have remembered, in that new step, we had a lot of other things also, if conditions, post it to MSMQ, post it to this, post it to that, right? So a lot of things were out there. I feel that one of the things which I feel about Azure is, if they make this really, really cheaper, even smaller companies will start using it. So that's where I think both the providers, Amazon and Azure, should start doing is they should try to move the small enterprises, which they are not doing at this moment. So you can see here, okay, so to list, whom do you want to send an email? I can say and send an email to Shiv_Koirala@yahoo.com. Don't spam me. So So there it is. And then I can add a new parameter, subject, hello, and so on. So you can see here, I can send this this thing out here. Why this box is coming before me? Hello, and so on, right? And if you go to the new step out here, there are thousands of steps out here, all built-in, standard. For example, built-in. You can also select condition. Let's say there is a conditional split out there. You will say, okay, how about going and pushing it to a blob? Let me say all out here, right? Blob. So there can be an Azure blob. You can connect to an Azure blob. You can create a blob. You can, SQL Server. I don't know if something is there for SQL Server. Yeah, there it is, SQL Server. So you can see like delete a row in SQL. You can do literally everything by using Logic Apps, right? So now if I go, I will go and I will save this. The Logic App is saved. And then once you save the Logic App, because I said that this Logic App will be triggered by using HTTP, it will create an HTTP URL out here. So if you see out here, once this is saved, I think it is getting saved still, is it? So once this is saved out here, this Logic App will be now accessible through an URL. There it is. That's the URL out here, right? So if somebody now goes and sends a request to this HTTP, an email will come to me. I can either go and do it through the browser, or I can just click on this run out here. You can see this started running out here. And once it has started running, so once this whole thing happens, it will actually send me a mail at my account in my Yahoo, right? So that's a very simple explanation of Logic Apps. It's taking a lot of time. Once it runs, it will show me here green or yellow or whatever, right? So if there is any errors also, it will actually show me out here. Successfully check the trigger, yes. Oh, what's happening out there? What happened? Oh, there it is. Everything is green out here. Must be I can just go and check my email. Fine, I will not check my email, but I hope that everybody has understood, what Logic Apps are. Any questions? Yes. Any queries? Is a platform as a service. Perfect, Malik. So Malik Arjun, you are saying, right? It's platform as a service. Yes. Yeah. So the API URL has to be integrated, isn't it? Means you have to make a post call, Srinivas, or you have to make a get call. If you're able to find resources like SQL Server, etc., which does not use VM, then wherein the VM falls into, what is the use of VM in our context? A good question out here. I'll take this. I'll take this question, guys. I've just taken some more time for the class today, so that I make you guys ready for today's evening, right? If we are able to find resources like services like SQL Server, which does not use VM, but one is a lot of times, you will not just, you want the full control of the operating system. For example, you want the whole machine because you are going to go and install Visual Basic in it. You will be installing MySQL. You will be installing SQL Express. You say, no, like I don't want to use SQL Server. I want to use SQL Express. So sometimes, you have a customized environment, which is not really standard. Then yes, you need a full VM control, right? Just for SQL Server, yes, it's good to have just SQL Server. But if you say that, no, like I want my application, my SQL Server, everything inside my VM, I don't want to host it on the shared environment. I want to do something custom, like for example, I want to go and do replication, always on, something very, very weird. Then I don't know that shared environment will provide how much access to you. Okay. So guys, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I think it's almost, we are almost 10-15 minutes more, and let's not stretch this. So I'll just take what do small companies do as an alternative to use cloud services? So smaller companies, I find that they go ahead and they use virtual machines which are given by local vendors. For example, we have our Questpoint VD. I know that it's not awesome. It's not a great website out there, but For that, we have a local vendor, because when we try to host that on Azure, the bills were very huge of that. So the bandwidth cost was so high that it was difficult for us to really manage. So what we did is we took a local VM from a local vendor, and we have hosted that on that VM. So local now, but let's say that if they reduce the bandwidth cost, if they reduce the bandwidth cost so much that I can use it, I will surely go and switch to Azure. So the TCO, when we did the TCO for us, we found that we are spending 5 times higher on Azure, but definitely going to Azure will give us 99% uptime and all that. But now in my case, if the customer does not see a video for an hour, I can handle them through the chat. I'm sorry to say that, but I can handle you guys, right? But when you're saying banking application, etc., I think then the things are different, right? So for smaller companies, they just go to some vendor, they use a VM, shared service, and they go ahead with it. My local vendor is not listening to me. So, okay, so thank you very much, everyone.